how's it going? This is James Tripp with another video for Flowboxer, the open source Tai Chi project on YouTube. In this video, we're looking at agile rooting and explosive short power. Now, if you're wondering about the last video and whether I'm going to do any more breakdowns of the old Tai Chi guy in the park doing his Fa Jin, I have had a request to do, I think it was number 9, which is possibly the most elusive Fa Jin in the mix there. I will break that down, but that's not what this video is about. So the next video might be about that. That is still yet to come. But for this video, I'm going to go back to some of the bag work training that I do, and a very specific piece in particular that you'll have seen up front here. It's where I am from contact, from a position that is a bit like a collar tie position. It's actually like play peepaw, but almost sort of applied on the wrong sides. It's this kind of hand position. For people who are into wrestling or Muay Thai or MMA, they might recognize a collar tie, although I'm doing it with the open hand. It's how to issue explosive power without any wind up, straight out of that position, and also at the same time reposition yourself to cut a different angle. Okay, so there's a force generation coming out of the root and creating an explosive penetrating strike and repositioning the entire body in relation to the opponent at the same time. Now, what you're going to see here is literally it'll look like I pop out the ground and move. Now, some people might think, well, James, how does that relate to rooting in Tai Chi? Because people think of rooting as being in a stance and sort of people pushing, and you often see these demos, people pushing on the master and the master taking all the force down. Yeah, that's an aspect of rooting. But for rooting to be functional, and by the way, just so you know what I'm talking about, your root is your connection to the ground. The idea is in Tai Chi, you want to have a good, clear connection to the ground because that is part of your power chain when you're issuing and receiving force, and particularly when you're returning force. You want that connection to the ground. You don't want to be just floating up in the air. In Tai Chi, we want to use our root in our power management, but that's no good if it has to have us rooted to the spot. So we have to have an agile root. Essentially, what you want to do is get to the point that whenever you put your foot down, you can root immediately and you can fire out from that root and change position. So every step, you should root with every step, but not become fully tied into the ground. So maybe root isn't even the best metaphor, but it's the traditional metaphor. So in this video, you're going to see me using my root as part of the power train to create this explosive power, and at the same time, literally popping out the ground and cutting an angle. So this is a strategic angle cut. As before with other videos, I'm going to break down some of the mechanics. They're just some observations. I'm not trying to teach every little aspect of what there is here. I'm just giving you an insight into some of what's going on. Okay, let's take a look at this. So the first thing I want to talk about here is the short power generation and issuing here. I said in the intro piece that this is done without any winding up. Now, this isn't strictly true. It's done without any winding back, but it's not done without any winding up. If you look at this, you will see that whilst my arm is pretty much in contact with the bag, doesn't come back and away from the bag for me to wind up power, there is a loading of the body. So you can see that I drop in, I dip in. Now, I talked about this in my first bag work video, some of the mechanics of Fa Jin. So I'm going to invite you to go back to that video because I don't want to cover the same points. But you can see that I'm dropping down and I'm dropping into my root and I'm loading my body's soft tissues. What's not happening is the arm coming back away from the bag to wind up. It's remaining largely in contact with the bag. Now, the reason that you want to be able to do this from a tactical perspective in Tai Chi Chuan is because Tai Chi Chuan wants to be controlling somebody all the time. It wants to be disrupting them all the time. So if you're in a, say, let's call it a collar tie position, and you've got pressure on somebody and you're disrupting their base already, you don't want to come away from that to then strike them. In fact, as you sink in, you can increase the inward pressure. This is called jai, so subtly increase the inward pressure whilst loading the body for an explosive release that's going to be damaging. It's not going to be throwing somebody here, it's going to be damaging them. It's also worth noting here that the inward pressure of jai is combined with the downward pressure of on, all in this loading up phase. So this is why we do this. We're not winding back, but we are winding up. But we're winding up in such a way as we are applying pressure simultaneously to them as we load our own soft tissues, as we load into our root, ready for that explosive release. So let's take a look now at what's going on with the lower body, specifically the footwork and the power generation. So this particular step, this is not unique to Tai Chi Chuan by any means. It's a highly functional step. I encountered this in Silat under the name a mouse step, and in boxing this is known as a shuffle step. This is specifically a front foot shuffle that I'm doing here. If you want to know more about the front foot shuffle in boxing, I recommend the Short Boxing channel. I'll link a video up here which has an excellent breakdown. It has a lot of other really good videos on that channel, which I may well do some Tai Chi crossover pieces with in the future. So the basic function of this step is to very explosively, very rapidly place us at a 90-degree angle to our opponent. So you can see here in the video, I'm facing the camera, the bag represents the opponent, and I explode out of my root. I land at a 90-degree angle. I've changed my angle by 90 degrees. Now, why do we want to do this? Why do we want to cut this angle on our opponent? Essentially, when we land like this, we're to the side of the opponent. All of our weapons, feet, hands, legs, elbows, knees, everything are aimed at our opponent, but our opponent only has half their body facing to us, half their weapons facing towards us. We're also in a position from a Tai Chi perspective to control the shoulder or go all the way around to the back for a takedown from behind or for a choke or anything like that. So it's an excellent strategic repositioning. So let's take a look at the mechanics now. I'm going to start off by briefly handing you over to our friend at Short Boxing, who's going to show you how the shuffle bit of this works. He's going to talk a bit about the twist that you put on it as well. Then I'm going to take back the reins and highlight how the Tai Chi version I'm showing here differs, some of the things I'm doing differently, and how we're using Tai Chi mechanics to drive this instead of the boxing hop and twist mechanics.
The shuffle step is part hop and part twist. It involves hopping the feet into a new position, your new stance, with the rear foot moving first and chasing away the lead foot. So as the rear foot moves towards the halfway position your front foot took in part one with the step, it chases that foot away into its new position, which rebuilds your stance at a dominant angle. As you execute this hop, you also need to twist everything from the feet up so that you face your new opponent. When using the front step shuffle in an orthodox versus orthodox matchup, the shuffle twists everything to the right.
So there's something I want to mention here before we get into the Tai Chi mechanics of this. And it's something that's not actually that important, but if I don't mention it, somebody will raise it in the comments and make a thing out of it. In the Short Boxing video, he's showing how you would do the shuffle step, moving to the right of your opponent from your orthodox stance to orthodox stance. In boxing terms, orthodox stance to orthodox stance. You will note that when I'm doing this, I'm actually starting out in a southpaw stance, so that's my right foot forward, and I'm shuffle stepping or mouse stepping around to the left and ending up in an orthodox stance. So I'm going from southpaw to orthodox. In the Short Boxing video, he is going from orthodox to orthodox. Now, why do I do this? For many, many years, I would predominantly spar and work out of a southpaw stance, even though I'm right-handed. One of the reasons for this is just that's the way it goes in Tai Chi, okay? It tends to be taught, at least the way I was taught, with a southpaw stance as the dominant stance and not an orthodox boxing stance. Now, since playing around with boxing and this kind of thing over the last few years, I've learned to fight equally, I guess, in an orthodox stance. And now I'm very, very comfortable switching stances. Stance switching gives me a lot of flexibility, a lot of choice. And if you look at Tai Chi, even though the right hand stance is often a major stance, grasp the bird's tail is right foot forward, so therefore southpaw stance, both stances are used and you learn to switch stances during push hands. So I'm very adaptable, very flexible. It's not something that gets taught in most combat sports. They tend to be more orthodox stance dominant, or some karate players are southpaw dominant. But that's not important for what we're doing here. It's not important for the power generation and the mechanics of the step. In the boxing variant of this, the power comes from a twisting and untwisting. So if you wanted to go over to your left, you would twist to the left, twist the shoulders in relation to the hips. So there's a torso twist, a waist twist, and that twist would load, and then you hop and unload it, and that's what creates the direction change. So you've got this twist and untwist. This is the primary power generator in the boxing version that we looked at from short boxing. In the Tai Chi version, we've still got a little bit of that twist untwist, but that's merely to steer the move rather than to power the move. What we're doing with the Tai Chi version is we are sinking down in the back leg and then transferring the weight forward. So it's a sinking down and forward, like an arc that goes down and forward. This is a very, very common way of generating power. You'd have seen it in my other heavy bag video. I'm using the same thing. And to be clear here, so you get the significance, as I'm sinking down and forward, I'm loading my body. I'm loading forces into my soft tissues, into my elastic soft tissues to rebound them up. That's what's going to create the power that's going to drive the strike and the power that's going to drive the position change. Note also, I'm going down and forward to load, and I can apply this down forward not only to load my body but also directly to my opponent to destabilize them. So down is on and the forward is jive. We talked about that earlier. So these same mechanics are basically what's behind most of the forward weight transfers in the Tai Chi styles you see from Yang Lu Chan onwards. But instead of just merely moving from a back weighted stance to a front weighted stance, you're moving through, and as you get into the front, that back foot's coming up to, as the short boxing guy said, chase the front foot away. So there's a circle that is in a vertical direction driving us forward rather than a twist and an untwist. Now, why is there this difference? In the boxing version, the main aim is to move. And what you're going to do is you're going to move and land in a position where you're wound up the other way to strike. So you've got this winding, unwinding, and then winding back the other way that creates this movement, and it also coils back the hand to strike. So upon landing, you want to be coiled to strike. With the Tai Chi version that I'm showing here, your explosive power movement, that explosion into the sort of neck area of your opponent, is happening on liftoff, not on landing. So we're sort of launching into it. So we've got this different power launch that creates that effect that we see. And what we want to do is we want to land in such a way that we re-establish a route. We've got all our connections in place, ready for whatever it is that we're going to do next. So we're exploding out of our route and landing back in and reconnecting. In the boxing version, we're twisting and untwisting and then hopping up and allowing that twist and untwist to carry us through the air and landing with the body coiled again for that big backhand shot. Okay, so if you found this video interesting in any way, please do give it a thumbs up. Please do subscribe to the channel for more content like this. If you're in Edinburgh and you want to develop your Tai Chi combat skills, your push hand skills, this kind of thing, please do get in touch with me. I'm running a group and I'm always happy to have enthusiastic participants. Come along and join in.